Righto, Hoyney, let's get to your overall observations. The flight attendants have done their safety demonstration. Our seatbelts are fastened. They have sat themselves down, and the pilot is about to put the throttle down for the plane to take off as we gear up to the premiership runway.
Yeah, so this is the premiership runway. So this is something that me and Kingy looked into last year for the first time, and basically what we've sort of come to the conclusion of is you've got from here on you've got 5 games to get your to get your system in good shape. If your game is not in good shape by round 20, pretty much forget about having a chance at winning the flag this year.
Got any examples of those who didn't have it in good shape?
Over the last 10 years, the last 4 home and away games, right? So that's a 40 game. That's a 40 game sample size for the Premiers. The last 4 home and away games, the Premiers have a 35-5 win-loss record. They've lost 5 games in 10 years in the last 4 home and away games. If you're not in good shape by round 20, forget about it.
Okay.
So you've got 5 games to go. So think to Geelong last year, they won their last 4. Melbourne won their last 4. Richmond won their last 4. Richmond in 2019 won their last 4. West Coast 3-1. Richmond 3-1. Dogs 3-1. Hawthorn 3-1. Hawthorn 3-1. Hawthorn 4-0. So this sort of when me and King were having a look at this last year, this basically led us to Geelong at round 16, round 17, basically going with it is theirs to lose, and if they lose this, we will be shocked.
Yep.
Absolutely shocked. If your game's not in good shape with 5 games to go, so over the next 5 weeks, forget about it. So there's just a couple of little things in each profile at the moment that just need to be tidied up. You've got 5 weeks to do it. So whether that's having a look at positional changes, whether that's actually changing the way that you want to play slightly, now's the time to do it. You do not want to be doing that from round 20 onwards because, as I said, history suggests that you will not have success at winning the flag this year.
Give me the 3 teams that need to dramatically change the way they're playing right now.
So the 3 teams that need to, I think, I've been a big Brisbane fan, as you know, this year. They just need to tidy up a few little things, and I like what they're doing at the moment by having a look with no Rich and no Gunston in that team. So they're doing the right thing at the moment. I think the Saints need to dramatically shift in terms of what they're doing at the moment, and the Dogs are the other one. So for me, they are the 3 that need to change a little bit in terms of what they're doing at the moment.
What about the Dockers and the way they're going about it?
Oh, the Dockers, I think when you look at Fremantle's profile, and it probably even started during that Melbourne game a little bit, if you like, as well. Their contest work this year has been so inconsistent. So rounds 1 to 6, they were the worst contest team in the competition. They got it back a little bit for a 3-week period, and then now for the last 3 weeks again, they've dropped to the 2nd worst contested possession team in the competition, and then that feeds off their their ability to be able to score and be able to get some serious scoreboard return. So that's a bit of an issue for them at the moment.
Hoyney, let's get into your 7 main talking points from the round, and we'll start with the Cats. You've had your doubts over them for a while, and probably nothing they did on Thursday night changed your opinion on that.
Yeah, so I had my doubts purely off the back of what they've been doing defensively pretty much from round 1 onwards this year, and everyone keeps telling me that it's personnel-wise. Well, I think that it's far greater than that. The issue for Geelong at the moment, which I haven't had doubts on for the whole season, is what they're actually doing offensively. So that's what was getting them through the first 8 weeks of the year. They're averaging over 100 points a game. They've now dropped to 13th for points scored over the last 6-week period. They've gone from being the most efficient inside 50 group to about mid-table. They've gone from punishing the opposition the 3rd most in the competition to 11th. Their ability to be able to turn possession into a score has gone from number 1 in the competition to 11th. Their ability to be able to generate inside 50s has gone from 4th to 15th. So their offensive profile is what got them through, as I said, the first 8 weeks of the year. That's no longer there. We know the midfield concerns. We know the defensive concerns have been there all year, and now they've lost their point of difference on the competition. And I just wanted to just throw up one player, and I know, again, I will get smashed for this. I just want to throw up Jeremy Cameron. So Jeremy Cameron was a top 10 player off our new rating system after round 8 this year.
Yep.
Last 7 weeks, he's now 250th in the competition. He's gone from being clearly the game's most impactful ball use player in the competition to now being 175th in the competition. His accuracy in front of goal was 17% above expectation after round 8. It's now 15% below expectation. So
We've just had a call from Professor Julius Sumner Miller, and he wants to ask you this. Why is it so?
Well, very good, G. I don't like getting into this because this isn't my area, but watching him against Fremantle, watching him against Port Adelaide on the weekend, I didn't see him getting involved, further up the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, for the last 18 months, up until round 8 and last year, you'd see him roaming around the field. You'll see him get into the defensive 50. I think you showed some vision early on in the year, Kane, of him getting back into the defensive 50 and just transitioning up and down the ground. We're not seeing that at the moment. So we saw him only have 10...
Think he might be carrying something?
Well, I don't know. Only they'll know. But he only had 10 disposals against Fremantle in round 10. He only had 6 up until three-quarter time against Port Adelaide. We didn't see him get it, just be able to just let loose and get outside the forward 50. So it's an interesting watch, and it's something that needs to change. Otherwise, their season is just about shot.
Yeah, what a game that one is on Thursday against Melbourne in Geelong. Let's go to the team that beat them, and that's Port Adelaide. What's making them so good, Hoyney?
I think, we spoke about them a little while ago and what Ken's done this year from a ball movement perspective, and that has really sort of elevated their game and now made them more dynamic, if you like, in terms of what they'll be able to do to the opposition. Chris Scott, being Chris Scott, as one of the best coaches in the competition, was able to take away their ball movement game on the weekend. It was actually their second worst ball movement game of the year in terms of being able to go from D50 to forward 50. And the main reason for that is, again, Chris and Geelong taking away their corridor use. It was the second lowest corridor use for Port Adelaide this year. Last 2 weeks, before the Geelong game, they were able to score 16 goals off the back of ball movement. They only scored 3 of their 16 goals off the back of ball movement. But why Port Adelaide as such a better team this year, and why you should have so much more faith in Port Adelaide this year than previous years, is that they find another way to win off the back of unbelievable pressure, off the back of unbelievable stoppage and contested possession work, and the ability to be able to score from clearance. So it's just it is a full credit to Port to be able to do that. So now when you're sitting and watching Port Adelaide matches, if you're a Port supporter, you're sitting there going, okay, we can win in multiple ways. We can win through ball movement. We can win through centre bounce. We can win through stoppage. We can win through territory. It makes it extremely hard to come up against as an opposition coach, moving forward for the rest of the season.
Have you reconsidered their premiership contention number? Have you still got Brisbane favourite?
No, I when the facts change, you're allowed to change.
What are the facts have changed?
No, facts have changed.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty hard to actually go past Port Adelaide ahead of Brisbane. Still got Collingwood and Melbourne ahead of them.
Yep.
But again, I don't know what you guys thought, but again, super impressive. Like Rosie had his lowest rated game of the year.
Yep.
Didn't matter. Horn Francis, lowest rated game of the year. Didn't matter. Dixon really didn't look like a factor. His lowest rated game of the year. Didn't matter. It's so impressive what they've been able to actually do this year.
Nathan Broad doesn't often feature in these areas. What have you found on him?
Well, I think probably the biggest thing for Richmond at the moment is what they're actually doing defensively. So it's almost the complete reverse of their profile last year. They were one of the best teams in the competition offensively, but defensively they had issues, which is why they actually got bundled out straight set, first final against Richmond. This year, offensively, they're going okay, but defensively, they've actually now become one of the better teams in the competition, have been able to restrict the opposition. And, when I was having a look at Nathan Broad on Saturday night, and, I've pumped up Mitch Owens on this show quite a lot, he goes straight to Mitch Owens on Saturday night and locks him away for a fair chunk of the game. Round 9 against Jeremy Cameron, locks him away for a fair chunk of the game. The week after, or a few weeks later, he locks away Toby Green, or just manages Toby as best you possibly can. Round 2 against Adelaide, he locks away Isaac Rankin. He's taking the most dangerous forwards in the competition and doing a really good job, as a result. And then it just got me thinking back to when he actually missed that 4-week period. So he missed that 4-week period through suspension. And in terms of their ability to be able to defend their defensive 50, they were 10th in that 4-week period without him. Now that he's back, they're second. In terms of their ability to defend turnover, without him, they were 12th. With him, they're third. And their ability to be able to stop the opposition, turning a chain into a score, they've gone from 10th to second. So there's a lot of talk about a lot of back lines in the competition at the moment. But I think when you look at Richmond's back six or back seven, it's actually now become really, really stable, and I think their main asset on the rest of the competition.
That's amazing stuff, really high-end analysis, and it's the stuff that you don't get, that your eye doesn't tell you. Maybe some supporters from Richmond would be able to acknowledge him, but to put it into that context, to, I guess, directly attribute his performance to team defence, but not only that, clearance and all the other stuff that you threw out there is fantastic.
Yeah, so I know, I think first game back after the bye, I think they got Brisbane. So he's probably the most likely option for a Charlie Cameron, if you like. So just keep an eye on what he's doing, and it's such a significant magnet, if you like, for Richmond.
Question without notice. You did talk about people talking about backlines. I've been asking myself this for most of the week. Have the Giants got the best backline in the competition? Now that Himmelberg's gone down there, it reads Iden, who's really improved, Himmelberg, Buckley. Taylor was centre half-back for All-Australian side last year. Whitfield, who's been a half-back All-Australian, and Lockie Ash. So there's 6 players that it may not be the best, but I tell you what, it's got to be on the podium now. I'm not sure who has got the best backline. Maybe Melbourne, maybe Collingwood when Jeremy Howe gets back. I used to think Fremantle had the makings of the best backline in the competition, and I still do, but they're not in that sort of nick at the moment.
And yeah, I think just thinking about it a little bit, other than probably Collingwood and maybe Melbourne, but they might have Melbourne covered. Yeah, they might have Melbourne. I think Melbourne more as a team probably have GWS covered. But in terms of just individual talent down there, and it suits the way that they want to play. They just want to be a surge team, a territory team. It suits the like of Lockie Ash and Whitfield in particular. We've talked about Jack Buckley and Sam Taylor on this show as well. I mean, the beauty about that group, other than probably a little bit of Nick Haynes when he plays down there, they're all still young and they're all still in that real
so
sweet
important to keep
spot
Himmelberg in the team.
So no, they're going along quite nicely.
Who would you rather be, Hoyney? Who's closer to a premiership? It's a ridiculous question, I know, but if you had to pick one, Adelaide or GWS?
I would go with GWS at the moment.
More star power, you think?
A little bit more star power, and this isn't against Matty Nix, because I actually like what Matty Nix is doing as well. Just the way that GWS play is, you can see that prelim final day and you can see that grand final day. We've seen it with so many teams. That's the brand that stacks up come finals. I'd be going with GWS just over Adelaide, but I am an Adelaide fan.
Move on to a couple of midfielders that caught your eye over the weekend.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about this, a little bit about Sam Walsh and Josh Dunkley on this show. So I just wanted to dive into them just a little bit more if I could. So Sam Walsh, his ball use up until the weekend was rated as 250th in the competition in terms of the impact that he was having from ball use. But that was a significant improvement on Sunday against Gold Coast. So, and I just wanted to explain why. So 506 metres from his 29 disposals. That was the second most metres gained that he's actually produced this year. But just more to the point, when he actually had ball in hand, and you did the game, I know, but his eyes were all towards goal. It was just going towards goal as opposed to lateral and sideways movement. So he went forward 90% of the time from his kicks on the weekend. He goes forward around about 80% of the time from his kicks so far this year. So, a forward Sam Walsh and a more dynamic, Sam Walsh resulted in 11 score involvements on the weekend. So we didn't see the sideways lateral sort of movement that I was a little bit critical of in previous weeks.
It was brilliant. I thought we touched on that last night, didn't we, Gerard, about his performance as his impact forward to centre. And what about the other one, Josh Dunkley?
And Josh Dunkley, so a couple of weeks ago, I just had to explain why he was actually rated so poorly against the Bulldogs that night, despite everyone sort of lauding his performance. But over the last 5 weeks, he's the number 1 rated player in the competition. Josh Dunkley. He has more impact than any other player in the competition from a ball winning perspective. No midfielder impacts the game through defensive actions more than what Josh Dunkley does. And the ball use is what killed him that night against the Bulldogs, and the only reason why he didn't rate as highly as what so many other people, actually thought that night. But his impact through ball use has actually improved by about 50% over the last 5 weeks as well. So his ability to be able to win it, get it forward, not turn it over, gain the territory, that's all that he needs to do. His role in the team is more as a ball winner, sort of defensive action sort of midfielder. Just the ball use, and I think he mentioned it post game that night as well against the Dogs that he just needed it, to tidy up his ball use as well, and he has done that over the last 5 weeks. So he's absolutely flying at the moment, Josh Dunkley.
That's why you need Hoyney sitting next to you at the All-Australian meetings. Just when people have got queries, Kane, you can just get another perspective from the numbers.
Be happy with that. I'd be happy for that intel. All right, we did this last week and you had us stumped on a very, very good player that had slipped right off the radar. Time for Guess Who. What do you got for us this week?
Yeah, so this guy, since round 8, he's a general forward, mid-forward type player, has only kicked 3 goals in his last 5 games. And as a result, he is the lowest rated player in the competition since round 8 off our new rating system.
Yeah.
50 kicks, only 18 of them have been effective. 5-game period for him. Lowest rated player.
Are we taking the break,
competition.
Kane, to give us some time to think about this?
Let's do that, Gerard. I thought that worked quite well. Right, 1300 736 736 is the Harcourt's open line. If you want to have a guess, or you can text through 0433 90 11 16. Who is Hoyney referring to? 18 effective kicks in the last 5 weeks, 3 goals, and he's completely fallen off the radar from a rankings perspective. Who might that player be? Let us know your thoughts on that.
He's actually quite topical at the moment in the free agency.
And the covers are on at Edgbaston.
The covers are on. Rain is around. We're going to cross there and speak to our man Brat Sundarayson as well a little bit later on in the program, so he will give us the conditions for that. So
That's not it. It's him. Oh, hello.
You've got it, do you?
No. Saying nothing.
Sergeant
Sergeant Schultz.
He's keeping it under his hat at the moment.
He'll have 10 guesses now.
Coming of Guess Who, which a lot of people have had a crack at off the Timber text. Is it Cozzy Pickett? Someone says Miles Bergman. Not sure they were listening that closely. Patrick Cripps is that player, says Daryl and Ballarat. Aaron Norton is that player, Tom de Koning. But we had a million suggestions for who I think it is. Hoyney, you want to reveal who it is?
Yeah, Jay Gresham is the player, Kane. Probably won't give as many clues away next week, I wouldn't have thought, for the Guess Who component. But no, Jay Gresham is that player.
I threw up Jamie Elliott to you in the ad break. How's he travelling?
Yeah, he's actually struggling this year. He's actually performed well below expectation compared to what he's done in previous years. And it's actually, ironically, given what he did last year, it's actually been his accuracy this year that's really fallen away. But the Gresham component, Kane, for me, and a large reason is to why he's performing well below expectation is purely on ball use. So he's had 12 shots at goal, kicked 3 goals. He's taking the 5th hardest shots at goal of any player in the competition. But Gresham for years, and last year in particular, it was his ability to be able to take possession, break that tackle and be able to then get away and actually just be able to gain, correct. So last year, if you just think about this, so either through broken tackles or just balking the opposition, so just getting out of traffic. He did that 26 times last year, which is a huge number. He's only done it twice this year. So only 2 times has he been able to get out of traffic. Yeah. So that's so that's
something
just a
for
watch.
Clubs pursuing him to consider.
Yeah, I'd just be a little bit wary. Obviously when you're having a look at those numbers, just be a little bit wary in terms of what you're trying to get into.
My first guess was going to be Tom Papley. That was the first thought that came to my head. And it would have been close, Hoyney, because he's had 51 kicks. Not sure how many effective, and just the 4 goals in his last 5 games.
Well, very
so he
close.
needs to lift as well. Let's move on,
Good
though,
guess,
because you want to speak about the leaky Dogs defence. They got it done, but some of their numbers defending the inside 50 ball on Sunday were alarming, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. So only 36 entries or whatever it was that they had, and and to give up only 84, 85 points is a little bit of a concern given who you're actually playing on the weekend. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion, around the Norton Magnet, and based off what Kingy's mentioned for a few weeks, and then seeing that in the second half, on the weekend. But I heard that Liam Jones is out now for
8 weeks.
10 weeks.
10 weeks.
10. Yeah.
So it's now fascinating in terms of what they actually do now, because we've spoken a lot on this show that if you think about the best teams in the competition, they have that roadblock behind the ball, and then if you've got that defensive system and structure behind the ball, so think Richmond, think GWS at the moment, you will find ways to score. So and then you have a look at what Collingwood in particular have ahead of the ball. So they got Myercheck as that, real competitor, if you like. Cox as that target. Johnson as that little bit of a floater. Then you look at Port Adelaide, and it's either Dixon or Lord as that competitor, Marshall as that real go-to, and then Finlayson as that, little bit of a floater type option. Van Ruin, Gawn, and Fritsch. So a little bit of a combination there. I think the Dogs have that combination. So they have that combination of Lobb. They have that combination of Jamara, who's going quite well. And then, if you throw in Cody Waitman as their Bailey Fritsch type option. So it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. They are, again, one of the easiest teams in the competition to beat in a one-on-one contest. If we talk about, that premiership runway and getting to round 20, this is the time where they actually do need to find out whether or not, what magnets are actually going to work behind the ball, because if it doesn't, they're going to have another failed campaign.
All right, let's talk about Josh Kelly's stunning return to form. Well, not enough as a return to form, but his performance on the weekend.
Well, he's having his best season since 2016, when he played that year mainly as a wingman. And he's now finding himself on our new rating system. He's now finding himself as a top 10 player in the competition. So I think he's really benefited off the back of this new system that Adam Kingsley and the coaches have been able to implement. So more of that forward ball movement, get the footy forward, bang it forward, and be a little bit daring with ball in hand.
He's benefited from being accurate as well.
He has been accurate in front of goal. So no midfielder is impacting the game more through their ball use than what Josh Kelly is at the moment. So, for years I think we've looked at him and everyone's thought that he's been this beautiful ball user, silky mover, sort of real damaging player with ball in hand, when that actually hasn't been the case, but it is the case now. And sort of, when you look at that midfield group, again, like that back six or back seven, it's a real nice balance in terms of age and actually, inside outside sort of, real balance. So it's this whole new system that Adam Kingsley has brought in has sort of, seen, the best of some of their high-end talent actually really come out, to play.
Who will replace Whitfield, do you think, in that role?
Well, it'd be interesting to see. Well, I think they've got another, sort of. Nick Haynes on the weekend played on the wing. He might go back. Harry Perriman is playing a little bit behind the ball, so he actually might sort of become a little bit more of that distributor as well. So I think the beauty with him is that they do have a lot of options to be able to throw around in that back half of the ground.
Yeah. We're talking a lot about a side that is in the bottom 4 or 5 on the ladder, but it's just the way they're playing right now that makes them really dangerous.
And it's more sort of just moving forward, I think, for 2024, 2025 for GWS. I don't think it's necessarily about where they actually finish in 2023. It's more about sort of, what's actually to come and to actually start to see it. We saw a little bit of this with Fremantle and Ross Lyon in 2012 when he first took over. It took a little while for their system to actually come into play. Then they flew home in the back half of the year. And, again, it wasn't all about 2012 for Freo. It was about launching into 2013. In 2013, they made a grand final. I'm not saying that GWS are going to make a grand final, but I think, there are some real positive signs that this system is actually going to take them forward, really quickly.
Each week, Hoyney looks at who the coaches missed on their coaches' votes and marries it up with the champion data rankings. Fire away, Hoyney. Who'd they miss?
So we go to Thursday night, and you touched on this before, Kane, with Sam Powell-Pepper. So only one vote from the coaches, but we had him as the highest-rated player on the ground, despite only winning 13.
Kenny was cock-a-hoop.
Yes. So despite only winning 13 disposals, but if you think
he only gave him one vote, Kane.
Well, I think in that game, Gerard, weren't they really split? Like, isn't that about as split as
it was
you can
9
get from
to
the
Dan
coaches?
Houston, he's going, he's fine. Jeremy Finlayson has got to be a dark horse for All-Australian. Todd Marshall 4, Rosie 3, Butters 3, Wines 2, Lysette 2. Yeah, they were split. Gary Rowan and Sam Powell-Pepper 1 apiece.
It was really split. But so if you think back to his goals in that game, they were 2 significant goals.
Yeah.
So he started that run in the third quarter, and then Geelong get within 2 goals in the last quarter, and then he fends off Zach Guthrie, kicks a goal from the boundary. So 2 freakish goals, which the ratings take into account significantly.
All right, who else from the Sydney Swans?
So we go to Friday night and Luke Parker. So Luke Parker was the highest rated player on the ground, didn't get a vote from either coach on the weekend. He was the 6th player this year to have 10 contested possessions, 10 clearances, and 10 tackles in a game.
How did he miss out?
Double.
So the old triple-double NBA style. So he's actually flying this year, Luke Parker. He's probably been their most consistent performer right across the group this year. So going along quite nicely.
I'd be interested to know how you rated Harry Cunningham's game, because lockdowns don't often rate that well.
No, very hard for the rating system to appreciate what Harry Cunningham did. So I can understand why the coaches gave him
Gave him 5
votes. Was it in the end? Yep. So well done, Harry. I've touched on this bloke for a while now, probably 3 or 4 weeks in a row. But Kieran Briggs.
Yep.
So Kieran Briggs, 0 votes on the weekend from the coaches, the 3rd highest rated player on the ground. I just want to put into context
He didn't get a vote.
No, he didn't get a vote. I just want to put it into context what Kieran Briggs has actually done in his 5-game sample size. So he's been in a top 3 rated player in each of the 5 games he's played this year. We've only seen 31 players since 2010 be a top 3 rated player on the ground in 5 straight matches. We've only seen 2 ruckmen previously do it. The 2 ruckmen previously, Max Gawn and Nick Natanui. 2 of probably the best ruckmen that we've seen over the last 10 years. So
is he the best ruckman in the comp since he's actually returned?
Yeah, at the moment he is, comfortably. So he's absolutely flying at the moment. And just to put that into context, so we've only seen 31 players, rate as a top 3 player on the ground in 5 straight matches. Little Gazza rated as a top 3 player in 11 straight matches, which is just, we've never seen anyone get anywhere near it.
Go Gazza.
What a absolute freak. I feel like this guy misses out a lot.
Yeah, so Jaden Short. His move, I think, to halfback over the last 3 weeks has been a significant move.
Yep.
We talk about the halfback flankers and their influence on the competition. He's absolutely flying at the moment. And, so we had him as the 3rd highest rated player on the ground, didn't get a vote. Not sure what you guys thought, but just sitting back on Saturday night watching that game, I thought St Kilda had clearly dominated, the first 15 minutes of the game. For him to kick those 2 massive goals from outside 50 just to get a bit of momentum into the game, I thought was quite significant.
Changed the course of the game.
So over the last 2 weeks, he's kicked 5 goals from outside 50 metres. And 4 of those goals coming in the first quarter where I think Richmond were absolutely up against it to actually start the game. So
is he playing the Nick Dacos role better than Nick Dacos at the moment?
Better than Nick Dacos at the moment. That's a big call. I don't know if I want to make that call, but he's going along quite nicely at the moment. The Collingwood supporters are already after me, G, so I can't pull another one of their players.
Nick Dacos currently on 63 votes. He's 13 behind Zach Butters in the coaches' awards.
And lastly, the Blues got their midfield game back. It was a stunning performance out of the centre bounce, and this guy was probably crucial to it. Yeah,
so Matthew Kennedy, 0 votes from the coaches. We had him as the 3rd highest rated player on the ground, but I think he was symbolic of what Carlton were able to do on the weekend in terms of a metres game perspective. Just get the ball forward. That was his highest metres gained game since round 1. Contested possessions, season high, clearance, score involvements and score assists. So really good to see Matty Kennedy back to what he was doing early on last season.
Just on Carlton, their transition numbers, back half to front half, must have been better on the weekend.
Yeah, no, they were better, but again,
most of it came out of centre.
All the damage was centre bounce related, so it wasn't through necessarily ball movement. But what they are doing, and we touched on this last week, is that they have started to open things up offensively. It was going to take a little bit of time. It does look a little bit clunky still, but they have definitely opened things up in terms of what they're doing from a ball movement perspective. Yeah, so Dylan Williams, I just wanted to recognise what he's done so far in his career. So he's won the first 12 matches of his career, which is the 2nd best streak we've seen since debut. He's got another 5 to go, so it's the 2nd best streak that we've seen. But Jake Bowie, 17 in a row, so he's got 5 to go,
including a premiership,
including a flag. Not a bad way to start your career, but not a bad way to start his career there too, Dylan.
Just on that, before you get to your horror, we had something on the Demons backline. No back 7 is better than May, Lever, Tomlinson, Salem, Hibbert, Rivers, and McVie. Throw in Bowie and Brayshaw. Hoyney.
Yeah, no, it's a very good list. It's a very good list, and I would have thought it's probably on par with what GWS have got. They probably defend better at the moment as a team than what GWS do. Well, definitely. But for individual talent, probably on par.
All right, what about your horror, Hoyney? Because this was a horror.
Yeah, it was. I just want to put it into a little bit of context, the Gold Coast performance, and especially the Gold Coast performance from centre bounce. So So conceding 50 points or more from centre bounce and scoring 0 yourself has only been done once before Sunday. And that game was done in the infamous Melbourne versus Geelong game in 2011 when they lost by 187 points or whatever it was, and they sacked the coach the week after. So only once before have we seen a centre bounce performance like that, which Gold Coast delivered on the weekend.
I remember that day they stopped serving petrol at Peter Spargo, who was on the Melbourne committee at that stage. They stopped serving petrol at his petrol stations at Little River. They had the flags at half-mast.
It's still one of those days that you won't forget where you were.
All right, we got a few questions coming through. He did just before that. He did change up the personnel, didn't he? I saw Powell in there and Holman went in there, I think, and
Anderson got out.
He'd had enough. I think Rao was the only one that was allowed to stay in there. Questions coming through. Can we compare the stats and ranking points for Mason Redmond, who is unsigned at the Bombers, and Miles Bergman, who is unsigned at Port Adelaide? Could they be a realistic like-for-like trade? Seem very similar to me, apart from age.
Yeah, so probably the biggest difference between the two is the impact that they're having from ball in hand. So, as a result, Redmond is a top 30 player in the competition at the moment. Bergman's about a top 200 player in the competition at the moment. As we touched on last week, Bergman's ball use is the second worst of any player in the competition, whereas Redmond is
surprised me with that number.
Yeah, so he's absolutely impacting the game.
I was on Bergman watched the whole time on Thursday night.
Did a good job defensively.
Yeah.
Did a good job defensively.
I think he's a free agent, Redmond, as well, which would mean they wouldn't have to trade for him anyway. I think I'm right in saying that, but thanks for your text. Not a bad observation. Hoyney, what areas of the game have North improved on this year compared to last, and what should be the key areas of focus moving forward? Asks a North Melbourne fan.
Yeah, so up until last weekend, clearly their strength now is from the midfield perspective and what they've been able to do from a stoppage and a scores from stoppage, point of view. And that actually was the case a little bit on the weekend in terms of how they were actually scoring. So now they actually need to start to sort of, developing that transition game and the ability to be able to move the ball from one end of the ground to the other, which is going to take a little bit of time. But at least now, if you're a North Melbourne supporter, you've got an area of the game where you can go and watch and actually be pretty confident that you're going to perform reasonably well in.
Whilst you're on North Melbourne, any numbers on Ben Mackay and his one-on-one? One of our texts wants to know.
So he's going okay, one-on-one wise, Ben Mackay, and his intercept marking is going okay. His ball use at the moment is the most questionable thing. So he hasn't got really an issue in terms of being able to win it back, but when he actually has it ball in hand, there is a little bit of doubt in that phase of the game from Ben.
Hoyney, have you noticed anything on Brodie Kemp? He's taken a big step forward this year at the Blues, asked Jez.
Yeah, so that was actually really interesting to see that selection on the weekend, to be able to just go with Wiedering and then Brodie Kemp as that intercept marker. He's actually rated as the fourth highest rated player on the ground on the weekend, and his intercept marking, I think he took 4 or 5 again on the weekend, and he actually did that against Melbourne the week before as well. So that's actually been a really significant win. He wasn't drafted as a key defender, but to be able to move and actually play as that role might be a real win. And we talked about it a couple of weeks ago with Carlton. Some of these positional changes that we saw with Melbourne in the back end of 2020 that led to their success in 21. Don't waste the season, and that might be one of those moves that actually pays dividends for Carlton.
Bulldog supporter wants to know, given that you're trying to get Norton at centre half back, or at least Kingy is, can you think about Rory Lobb at centre half-back? Athletic, big tank, can run, can take the odd grab, and can kick. Thanks to Brooksy.
Absolutely. I think that's actually not a bad shout. And we talked a little bit about at the early on. In this show, now's the time to look at these things. So whether it's Norton, whether it's Lobb, whoever it is, you've got to start looking at it now. So absolutely worth a good discussion there at the Bulldog selection committee.
Well, we've got 20 seconds left, Kane. You got one final one?
I had one on where you think Petty plays. A Melbourne fan wants to know this week, back or forward.
I think Petty plays down back when he comes back in. I think Melbourne are now ready to launch off that runway. They might be in the business lounge at the moment, and they're getting close to take off. Okay. So I think he goes down back. Harrison Petty when he